So when you do something non-virtuous, can it ripen in a mental affliction or vice versa? So usually when we talk about afflictions, okay, what connects one moment of an affliction to the next moment of manifest affliction? So, for example, if, I'm mad this morning and then I'm not mad for the rest of the day, and then in the evening I get mad again, okay? We say that it's the seed of the affliction that connects the first moment to the second moment, because it wasn't like anger just totally vanished from your mental continuum during that time. The seed of the anger was there, even though the anger wasn't there in the manifest form. Okay, so it's not that karma causes the afflictions. Okay, the karma doesn't cause the afflictions, because the karma is the actions we do. The actions we do leave seeds or imprints on the mind stream. Okay, so the action itself doesn't cause the affliction. In terms of how it goes, it's the affliction that causes the action. Okay, so if I have anger in my mind, that causes the action of telling somebody off. If I have attachment in my mind, it produces the the action of lying to get something that I want. Okay, so it's the afflictions that cause the karma. Okay, then one of the results of karma, because karma has 4 different kind of results. Well, 3, but one is divided into 2, so you wind up with 4. So one is the realm that you're born into. The second is the experience that's similar to the cause or concordant with the cause. That's the one that has 2. And I'll come back to that one in a moment. And then the third one is the environmental result, the environment that you're born into. So those are the 3 results of a fully completed karmic action. Okay, that's either virtuous or non-virtuous. And to be fully completed, it needs 4 powers. Read the book. Read either the book Good Karma or it's in volume 2 in Foundation of Buddhist Practice. Okay, this explains a lot about karma. So if you have questions, read those 2 books. They're helpful. Okay, so that second one, the result that's concordant with the action, has 2 parts. So one is that you experience something similar to what you cause somebody else to experience. The second part is that you have the habit of doing the same action again. So that one is really deadly. Okay, because it's the habitual energy such that we keep doing the same in terms of non-virtuous actions, the same non-virtuous action repeatedly, which just accumulates a lot of negativity. In the case of our virtuous actions, to have that habit of doing the same virtuous action again and again, that one's good, okay? But you can't have one without the other, and this is just the way it works. Okay, so we may have, let's say, the habit to let's say, be very uncooperative, and just rude to people. Okay, so we're rude and uncooperative. Then if we do an action like that, then part of the result is the tendency to do that again. Okay, so it's more, although we have some mental actions, for example, coveting other people's things, malice, which is like planning how we want to harm them, wrong views, so these kind of mental actions, then there's some habit from doing them before. But the mental action is not just the affliction, it's the affliction being in the mind for a longer time and getting ready to, it's building on itself and getting ready to come out in terms of body and speech. Okay, so for example, the negative action, mental action of malice isn't just a moment of anger. A moment of anger is affliction, but the negative action of malice, okay, it's a mental action, is you're sitting there stewing. You know, this person did to me, this to me, I want to get even, I want to harm them back. So it's not just a moment of the affliction, but it's that affliction kind of, you're ruminating on it and building on it, and, you know, it may or may not come out in your body or your physical or verbal actions. Okay? So it's usually, just to be clear, it's afflictions that cause karma. Okay? And then karma leaves the seeds or the imprints, and those ripen in those 4 kinds of results that I just described. Okay? You got it? A little bit complicated? Yeah. I mean, if you write it down, it's not so complicated. Yeah. Okay. Then when you do purification, like circumambulation, does the power of the holy object cause karma to be purified quicker, or negative results manifest quicker? I don't think the power of the holy object causes karma to manifest quicker or things to happen quicker. I think it's if the power of the holy object is just what they say, that even if you don't have a particularly virtuous motivation, let's say when you're circumambulating a stupa, just by the power of coming in contact with that object, it leaves virtuous imprints on the mind. Okay? So that's why they say it's very good to circumambulate holy objects. It's good to, sponsor Dharma books. It's good to look at the statues of Buddha, or have prayer wheels and turn them, and all these kinds of stuff, okay? But if we reword the question in another way, does purification in general, like doing Vajrasattva or 35 Buddhas or whatever you're doing, does it cause an action to bring its result quicker? Yeah. What did she say? Does it cause the karma to be purified quicker, or negative results manifest quicker? Okay, when you're doing purification, sometimes you get sick, sometimes your mind is off the wall and wonky. These kinds of things happen when you're doing strong purification. And so they say that it's a result of the purification, because you're really applying the 4 opponent powers in a very sincere way, then sometimes it happens that the karma can ripen very quickly, and in a way that is not as strong as it would have if we had not done purification. Okay, so for example, I had a friend who was doing a purification practice at Kopan, one nun, and she got a very bad boil on her cheek. It was a really big boil. And she was walking around one day, and I forget if it was Lama or Rinpoche, probably Rinpoche, who gave this particular answer. And, he said, what happened? And she said, I have this boil. And he said, fantastic. And she's going, huh? Rinpoche, it's big, it's infected, it hurts. Fantastic, you have a boil. Why did he say fantastic? Because some negative karma was ripening and it was finishing and it would no longer be obscuring her mind. So that karma ripening, because she was deliberately purifying at that time, could have been a karma that otherwise, if she hadn't purified, may have ripened in, let's say, being born in a lower rebirth for an eon or two, or a couple of rebirths, or who knows for how long. But the idea is, when we experience suffering like that in this life, if we see it as purification, then it becomes purification. If we just see it as, oh, my negative karma ripening, then it's just negative karma ripening. Okay, so it's always good if you get sick or something doesn't go the way you want, or there's an accident, or somebody criticizes you, or something like that, to say, oh, this is a result of my negative karma. It's ripening now. How fortunate I am. This person just told me off. I am so fortunate. Okay. Yeah. Why? Because that karma could have ripened in a really horrible rebirth otherwise. And so if you think about the things that happen to you, and the unpleasant things that happen to you in this life in that way, then you see that actually you can deal with the suffering that came. It's not a big deal compared to a rebirth in the lower realms. Getting sick is nothing. Yeah. So you just kind of say, okay, I'm sick. It beats, having a horrible rebirth. And I'm glad this is happening. And by the power of your thinking in that way, it becomes very strong purification. Yeah? Whereas, instead, if you think, oh, this person told me off, oh, nobody loves me. This is always the case. People are criticizing me when I didn't do anything wrong. I'm so angry. I'm so hurt. I can't even get to my meditation cushion. I'm so upset. Yeah? If that's your reaction to somebody telling you off, then what kind of karma are you creating? It's negative karma, isn't it? Okay? So this is, kind of rejoicing when this kind of stuff happens. Is actually, it's very good for us now because it prevents us from getting unhappy and distressed and depressed. And by thinking in that way, we really transform, the karmic result, which could have been big, becomes something small. And then we realize, I can handle this situation. Yeah, it isn't like, because if we don't think like that, then, we go off into our melodrama. But if we think like that, then, oh, I can handle this. This is okay. Okay, so I'll tell you a story. So, let's see. Let me remember how this went. Okay, so in 1987, the summer, we went to Tibet. Venerable Sangye Katra was mentioning that the other day. Okay, so I was with one of the attendant of one of my teachers, and my teacher had died, and his previous life's relatives, and we were going to Lama Lotso, the prophetic lake where they often go, and when they're looking for the new Dalai Lama, they look in the lake and they see signs and symbols and letters and things. So we were taking some horses there. So there was a Western monk, I won't mention his name, who was, there was just a small group of us. I don't know, we were maybe like 6, 7 people. So he was one of them. So we were on horses. And his horse was very uncooperative. And we would get in the middle of a stream and his horse would stop. And he was somebody who, he was not a particularly easygoing person, so this really caused him a lot of distress. I had a very nice horse. Yeah. So one time, after his horse got stuck, refused to go anywhere in the middle of a stream, once we got across, I said, I'm happy to change horses with you, and I'll ride, your horse, you ride my horse, because, I'm okay, you stand in the middle of a stream for a while. And I offered that, with a kind heart. He exploded at me. And, why are you doing this? And we've worked together for years, and you're always doing this kind of thing. And even so-and-so told me when they were working together with you at this Dharma center how terrible you were. And really big time. And all I did was, try and do something kind. He exploded. So usually I hate being criticized, It's one of my most unfavorite things. So, like most people, yeah. So I just listened, and there was one technique the Lama Zopa had taught us, and that was, because it's very important to not think our self-centered mind is us. Okay, but to think our self-centered mind is something out there that's like disturbing us. And so the technique is, when somebody's like telling you off, you give all the pain to the self-centered thought. Okay, so instead of being, getting upset and so on oneself, you just give all the turmoil, all the pain to the self-centered thought. Here's self-centered. You take that. Because anyway, if somebody's criticizing you for your faults, why do we have those faults? Self-centered thought. So it's right that it goes to that thought. So he's sitting there saying, and I'm just like, this technique, this what Rinpoche had taught us, popped into my mind at that moment. I had heard it before, but I had never practiced it, It was on my notes that, you put on the top shelf and don't look at, and like you do. And so I just said, okay, here he is blaming me one thing after the other for things like that happened years ago that he haven't heard about. I can't even remember. Anyway, I just said, okay, it's going all to the self-centered thought. Every single word of it is going to the self-centered thought. And I sat there and listened. And then we continued on our journey. He didn't accept my offer. We got to where we were staying that night, and my mind was completely smooth. It was like I wasn't upset at all, which was astounding because, like I said, I don't like getting criticized, and it usually makes me quite upset. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing, when you do something that's purifying, then that kind of thing happens. But that story doesn't go very well with what I was explaining. I don't know why I told it to you. Okay, I should tell you another story. Okay, but it's a good story, isn't it? It's a good story, and it really, otherwise I would have been so bummed out on that pilgrimage, because we were days together, this small group of us. Okay, so the story, many of you have heard this before, too bad. Okay, let me make sure this story. Yeah, well, this is actually I don't need to tell you a particular story about this, but this is the kind of thing I regularly do. Like even if I trip and I stumble, or I get sick or whatever, then I just now kind of as a matter of habit almost, not I don't always remember, but very often. And I think, this is just the ripening of karma that could have ripened in something much more serious, much more horrible. I really got off easy. Yeah? So, I don't, so the thing of whether we purify or whether it's just the karma ripening depends a lot on the way we think of the situation. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, isn't it? The situation is the same, but it becomes just ordinary ripening of karma or purifying a lot of karma, depending on the way we think. Not on the situation, on the way we think. Okay, so we have M and Fabian and your Daniel. Yeah. Okay, so questions in that order.
Okay, so yesterday I was helping out with something down at Tara's, and in that I had a nail or a screw puncture my head, and it was really gross and bloody. And as we were talking, I realized I was purifying and working with the non-virtue of all the worms I killed fishing, with hooks going in their heads. And, is that the purification? It seems like very obvious, almost, or is it just kind of a coincidence that such a similar thing happened for the worms?
That you have to ask the Buddha. Okay? Those kind of specific things, what's the ripening of what kind of action? Only the Buddha knows that. But your thinking in that way transformed what happened to you into strong purification. Yeah? And especially, if you're regretting having gone fishing and killed all those fish.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of freaked me out that it was so similar to what I was doing with the worms, except it was a screw, not a hook.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. But it gives you some feeling for the pain the fish went through. Yeah. Except you didn't get killed and fried.
No.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Fabian.
So you mentioned external, negative, unpleasant external events happening to you as being a ripening of negative karma. What about internal experiences? So whether it's anxiety or confusion or unclear, foggy mind or depression or anyway.
I think some of that can also be the result of negative karma. They say, for example, if we've have had a lot of malicious thoughts towards others, then we, in a future life, we're born in a way where we have a lot of suspicion of other people. Yeah, we're not relaxed around other people. If you make your teacher's mind unhappy, by doing negative actions or whatever, then it can ripen in terms of, depression ourselves or being very moody and unhappy ourselves. Yeah? So yes, it can, manifest in terms mentally as well.
Can we go back and purify some actions that have happened in our past, or does this purification have to happen in the moment?
Oh, no, that's what we're doing now. The whole Vajrasattva practice is about purifying things we've done in the past, okay, even in past lives. Yeah, and so you just take the whole kit and caboodle, and think about it and want to purify it and go through the four opponent powers. Yeah. So it's a practice that I think is very psychologically healthy for us. Because when we don't purify, then all these experiences weigh on us mentally, and we get bitter, we get cynical, and so on. Whereas if we purify our negative actions, then we put them down, and we can go on in our lives with a much more upbeat, optimistic attitude. Yeah.
Can we purify proactively? Like,
Like,
say, okay, I know.
I'm going to spray my house and kill all those cockroaches, so I'm going to purify it before I do it.
Not having something like intentional, but you know that you're going to probably do something, and so you're kind of putting out some good purification. No,
You can't purify before you've done it, okay? Yeah, but you can lessen the strength of the karma when you do it, by kind of, like, if you know you're going to fumigate, and I don't recommend this, I am not sanctioning this at all, but some people, it's like they come to me, I'm going to fumigate no matter what you tell me. Okay. I don't agree. But at least have some regret when you're doing it. Yeah, don't do it with glee, like, oh, how many bugs am I killing? This is so, it's just, I really regret it. So that makes the karma less strong, and then you still have to purify afterwards.
This is more of a comment than a question. On a personal note, what I've noticed for myself in my practice through the years is that at first I would think, by doing Vajrasattva, if I had a pretty intense, heavy karma that I wanted to purify, that it would lessen like almost immediately, and I would get discouraged because I would keep doing Vajrasattva, and I'd think, oh, why isn't this working? And now I'm finding it just kind of starts to really loosen its grip, and it's really quite profound, actually.
Yeah.
It just takes time.
Yeah.
This is slightly shifting gears, and but I'm hoping maybe it'll help some other people too. In the practice, I'm finding it hard-ish to generate a clear vision of Vajrasattva. Like when I'm doing things with Shakyamuni Buddha, that's like way easier for some reason. I was wondering if you could give any tips or some way to. I feel like I'm not super connected with Vajrasattva. I don't think I understand Vajrasattva the way I understand. Like when I do the meditation on the Buddha, oh, it's so clear.
Yeah.
But like with I was wondering if you had any background or tips or ideas to help with the visualization.
Right. I think a lot of this has to do with just familiarity. That you haven't done the Vajrasattva practice before, or you haven't done it much before. So there's not that feeling of strong connection, the visualization isn't clear. It's like when you just meet somebody, you're not going to remember their face very clearly. You don't feel connected to them, but the more you meet them and talk to them, then you remember what their face looks like, and you feel more connected. It's like that.
Yeah, I sort of feel like, too, there's like an intellectual gap. Like, I guess I don't understand necessarily when we talk about these different embodiments, like where they come from or what they really are. Whereas with so I didn't know if there was like text or anything to kind of get a better sense of when we're talking about, or a Tara or whoever,
It's more that you take the qualities of the enlightened mind, and because we cannot communicate directly with a Buddha's omniscient mind. The Buddhas manifest in these physical appearances. And the physical appearance expresses some of their qualities, and different Buddhas may have also made unshakable resolves to help sentient beings in certain areas. So Vajrasattva, resolved to help us with purification. Tara with enlightening influence. White, that's green Tara. White Tara, long life. Manjushri, wisdom. Okay, Chenrezi, compassion. So they all have the same realizations, but they manifest in different ways to emphasize different aspects of the enlightened mind. Yeah? So you can see them as people, but I find it more helpful to really think of them as just manifestations of qualities instead of being people with a self. They're the appearance of these qualities in a physical form. Kind of like an artist may have something in their heart and they paint something, or they, express it in some way. So it's like that. The form bodies of the Buddha are expressions of these internal qualities. And as we do the practice repeatedly, we become more familiar with it. The visualization becomes more familiar. We're kind of like getting to know that Buddha and forming a friendship. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm a little more interested now in merit and karma.
Mm-hmm.
So during the Vinaya, when Wu Yin,
Mm-hmm.
I introduced myself to her. I told her that I had been married to a Japanese, and she goes, "Oh, you get so much merit for that." I said, "So I picked good, huh?" So it's like almost better than 40,000 miles on your mileage card. I was like, "Wow, I get all that merit, but where is it going? And where am I putting that in my back pocket? And is it going to negate some of my negative karma?" And maybe you could.
Yeah, I'd rather use another example.
Please do.
I think she meant meeting. Your husband was Buddhist, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the
Oh.
being married to a Buddhist.
Buddhist Japanese. I'm sorry. I'm always leaving out important details.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right. It was the Buddhist part, not the Japanese part.
It's more about Buddhism.
Yeah.
But it was more about Buddhism. Then I was
Yeah.
afraid to tell her that as I became more Buddhist, he became more Christian. I thought, well, then now I'm going to get subtracted some of that merit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so your question is? No, I can't solve your marital problem.
More of the relationship between the merit you gain and the karma, the negative karma that you create.
Okay. So creating merit or virtuous karma, yeah. Again, this is it's a little bit difficult. Sometimes, in some cases, it acts as a force against the ripening of a non-virtuous karma. In other cases, it's just it does that, but it also plants the imprints in your mind for good results to come about. Okay? So, how much it overpowers some, if it's 52% or 70%, put that on the list for the Buddha, okay? Yeah, I can't tell you that. Okay, in the back? Yeah,
Can I just clarify really quickly?
Uh-huh.
So when you said that the difference between just a normal ripening of karma and a purification is how we define it?
How we think, not how we define it, but do I say, oh, good, I'm purifying a negative karma. I'm glad this is happening. Do we say that? Or do we say, what the beep, beep, beep is happening to me? Why is this happening? It's not fair. In which case, there's no purification, and in fact, there's creation of negative karma.
Thank you.
Okay?
I'm sorry to ask so many questions. And this is actually kind of the opposite of your question, which is when I visualize Vajrasattva, and some of this happened actually in the 6-session Guru Yoga too, is like it's hugely powerful, and I feel like so much of a bond, and I'm like so connected, and I'm pretty sure that the Buddha of purification would not approve of me in general So is that just delusional? Or am I like just projecting?
Yeah, you're not thinking in the right way. Okay? First of all, Buddhas don't judge us. Okay? They're fully awakened beings. They have no anger. They have no judgment. They have no desire to put anybody else down. Okay? They look at us only with compassion. Okay? So Vajrasattva is looking at you with compassion. He's not going, oh, there she is. She did it again. Wow. You know, she asks me to purify. I help her purify, and then she's out and does it again. Oh, you know, that's not happening. Okay? The Buddhas they're very patient and tolerant. They realize that, you know, we go slowly. Yeah, so the Vajrasattva is not disapproving of you or anything like that.
Well, I was just thinking it was a delusion on my side from, like,
Yeah.
you know, I really like him to like me, so he likes me.
Yeah. You don't need to do 10 backflips for Vajrasattva to like you either, because Vajrasattva has love and compassion for everybody, no matter how we act in return. Okay? So all that samsaric way of looking at people, do they like me, do they not like me, oh, they don't like me, I'm going to be kicked out of it, Vajrasattva's going to go blank because he doesn't like me anymore. You know, that's our ordinary way of thinking, and that doesn't pertain to awakened beings. What it does show is how ingrained this distorted way of thinking is in our mind, and how we find it so difficult to imagine somebody looking at us with unconditional acceptance and with compassion, and even visualizing Vajrasattva looking at us that way. Instantly, we go into, I don't deserve it. Yeah? I'm full of shame. I don't deserve it. Something's wrong with me. This can't be true. This is all of our wrong conception mind operating. And it's a big bunch of garbage that has nothing to do with reality. Yeah. Even with other living beings, we assume with other living beings, oh, they don't like me, I did something wrong. You know, they don't say good morning. Oh, no, they're mad at me. What did I do wrong? You know, we make up a whole story, and nothing happened. You know, this is all the function of the self-centered mind. Yeah? Because the self-centered mind always has to be the star. And if we're not the best, we are the worst. And we're the one everybody hates, the one everybody discriminates against, the one who is most unworthy, who is most unvaluable, on and on and on. You can write out, I'm sure you have this whole script, you know, a bunch of garbage that we tell ourselves, that we believe. And we have to get rid of all that stuff, because it's not true.
When I'm visualizing Vajrasattva and experiencing those qualities, as you described, for whatever reason, I experience that being as very neutral, not particularly a male Buddha or a female Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I visualize Tara, my experience of her qualities seem to be much more in the feminine. I find that quite beneficial. But I don't know if that's just my own projection or if that is how that particular Buddha is purposely depicted and I happen to be picking up on that, or...
I think Buddhas basically are androgynous.
True.
Yeah. So they appear in different forms. And the thing that's important is not do they appear in a male form or a female form, because look at what happens if we think of them as strongly male or female. We project all this stuff on them. Oh, Vajrasattva is male, therefore blah, 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 blah. And Tara is female, therefore blah, blah, blah. And actually, those are just external forms. Buddhas have no gender.
I agree, except on the tonkas or in our
Yeah.
visualizations, those particular qualitative expressions do have forms that sometimes cue us
Yeah.
to experience them as more stereotypically feminine
Yeah.
or
But I
masculine.
think it also provides the, we do have that response, but it also provides the opportunity for us to ask ourselves, what do we mean by masculine and what do we
This
mean
is
by
true.
feminine?
This is true.
Because that kind of, this is masculine, this is, I don't know. I can't, sometimes that kind of stuff just doesn't resonate with me. Yeah. It's like we're human beings. Yeah. They say, oh, women are so emotional. I've been around a lot of emotional men. There's oh, women are so. I've been with men sobbing their eyes out. Don't tell me women are so emotional. Okay? So. Hold on, we're coming around.
Something related that we talked yesterday, if I can ask, about when you went to Tibet and you wanted to learn more, and there was some discrimination between women.
Oh, this is in the Tibetan community in
Yeah.
India.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if you can share, like, when you went through that, how do you react in terms of to maintain? I thought in terms of, like, if I was you, I go there and I dedicate to learn more, and I see from one of the community that I think I'll see as an example that behavior. I kind of will have some struggle, doubt to the entire Buddhism. So I'm just wondering how you
How I dealt with it. Yeah. Yes, for some people it causes doubt. But for me, the truth of the teachings that I was hearing was irrefutable. And so I separated in my mind the purity of the Buddhist teachings from the culture in which it was embedded. Because they're two different things. And Buddhism always exists within a culture. That doesn't mean I need to agree with everything in that culture. But the teachings themselves, are pure, and if I practice them correctly, they'll lead me to awakening. Okay? So I kind of separated those things out. Another thing that I found I had to separate is I separated out the Buddha Dharma from religious institutions. Yeah? The Buddha Dharma is one thing, fantastic. Religious institutions, they were established by human beings. There's politics, there's blah, blah. They're two different things, okay? And my refuge is in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. My refuge is not in a particular group or institution. Okay? Yeah. Another thing that helped me with this is I saw how my own mind was involved in creating the antipathy I felt. Okay? Because one day I was sitting in there in Dharamsala, when His Holiness teaches, thousands of people there, This was many, many years ago. Decades ago, and then we would offer soak like we're doing tonight. And so during the soak practice, 3 people stand up, and with His Holiness, it was always 3 monks who stood up to offer His Holiness the plate and the substances. And then it was also the monks who distributed all the offerings to everybody in attendance. So I was sitting there going, it's always the monks who get to do this. Yeah? Why can't the nuns ever be the ones that stand up and make the offering to His Holiness and distribute the offerings to the whole crowd? This is just total gender bias and discrimination. And then I imagined, okay, in my imagination, now it's 3 nuns standing up and offering to His Holiness, and then the nuns distributing everything. And if that happened, then I would think, oh, they make the nuns stand up to make the offering to His Holiness. And they make the nuns distribute the offerings to the assembly. It's always the nuns who have to stand up and work while the monks just sit there. Okay? So I saw this in my mind, and I said, ooh, okay. Yeah, my mind is having something to do with all of this. Okay?
So I'm new to visualizing a Buddha and imagining things coming from a specific being into my body. But I'm a very conceptual person, so what I've been doing that's been working for me is imagining a source of energy or a light source that is the essence of purification coming into me, and not worrying so much about conceptualizing and seeing in my head a lotus, which I don't really know very much about lotuses on a moon and hands like this. I'm not trying to make fun of anything. I'm trying to describe my struggle because I'm trying to get the most out of the purification ceremony.
Right.
And to me, what I'm asking myself is, am I getting the purification that is my intention of being purified by seeing the entity as white light?
I think it's fine. Start with that because that resonates with you and that enables you to you can still go through the 4 opponent powers that way, and you just think of that light as being the nature of wisdom and compassion. Yeah. And then slowly as you continue practicing, then with time you can shift over and visualize Vajrasattva, because then you'll learn that the lotus, symbolizes renunciation, and the moon symbolizes bodhicitta, and you get more familiar with some of these things.
So
but that
do the
takes
physical
time.
things matter? Do those physical elements matter, or is it the what they symbolize matter?
They're connected. It's the physical thing is leading you to think in a certain way. Okay? But I think for now, what you're doing is fine, because the thing that's important is that you have some experience of it. Okay? Yeah. And the whole thing with visualization, people always ask about that. I can't visualize anything, and it's all blurry, and okay, it's really just a thing of habit and familiarization. Yeah, because if I say pizza, do you have a visualization of pizza? Yeah,
I would have a clearer visualization.
Yeah, so we have the capacity to visualize. It's just what are we habituated to visualize?
Hopefully this question isn't as silly as the last one. You were talking about the releasing our identities. And this plays into, becoming invisible to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm wondering is, when we become invisible to ourselves and do the emptying meditation, what's left? Is there a self, an id, or a soul, or
There's
do we have some kind of identity?
There's no soul. There's nothing that is an inherently existent me that we can draw a line around and say, this is the essence of me. That will never change. Yeah, from a Buddhist viewpoint, that kind of thing doesn't exist. There is a mental continuity, one moment of mind following the next moment of mind. Yeah, always changing, never remaining the same. Yeah. When we're alive, when that mind stream joins with the body, then in dependence on that body-mind combination, we give the designation I. But we're not our body and we're not our mind. But there is an I there because we say, I walk, I talk, I mean, you're here sitting here in this room, aren't you? Yeah. But are you your body? No. Are you your mind? No. Okay. So there's a person, but that person exists by merely being designated independence on the body and mind. Okay. It's a little bit difficult to understand, but if you just, remember, there's nothing that I can isolate and draw a line around and say, that is a permanent me. The essence of me that is special, that never changes.
Yeah. Same essence. And I think that's what a lot of us feel is we have some kind of essence that makes us us.
Yeah. And from a Buddhist viewpoint, that is incorrect. Okay? So just because we feel it doesn't mean it exists. Yeah? And this is touching at the root of all of our problems. Because we feel so strongly, there's a real me, then we get attached to everything that gives that me pleasure. We have hostility towards everything that interferes with the pleasure of that I or self. And there we go into samsara with all of our afflictions.
When you made the comment regarding separating out Buddha Dharma from religious institutions, I've had the opportunity to live in different Buddhist countries and visit and experience them. As I've grown as a practitioner, I've really tried to assimilate that experience and make sense of it. Also as a householder and having a family, contextualizing that and really defining the path for myself in certain regard. I have always felt, though, uncertain as to how much I can do that. And my question to you is, how far do you go down the line to say, oh, that's an institutional element, that's a cultural element, versus this is Buddha Dharma? And that, for myself, is a very, very challenging place to be, whilst trying to stay true to my teachers, trying to stay true to the path.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a very important topic. Yeah. I remember when I went to receive the full ordination in Taiwan in 1986, I had spent 9 years already being a nun in the Tibetan system. And I had learned to sit for a long time, chant in Tibetan, do things the Tibetan way, my shoes all over the place. Yay. And then I went to Taiwan, and you don't sit for hour after hour there, you stand. And I couldn't stand that long, you know. And instead of chanting in Tibetan, you're chanting in Chinese. And instead of wearing robes like this, I was wearing other robes. So a lot of what I thought about during those 2 months in Taiwan was what is the Dharma and what is culture. Okay? And this is, it's a delicate thing. Tibetans in general do not differentiate between the two. Yeah? So it's very rare to find a Tibetan teacher who can help you along that line. Okay? But we have to think, you know, for example, we once asked His Holiness about, you know, like in the pujas we do tonight, we have the drum and the bell, you know, as, you know, things that you use to offer music. Now, in Tantra, the drum and the bell have certain symbolism, so that you're not going to change. But when you're just talking about offering music, His Holiness said you can use a piano, you can use a guitar. It doesn't really matter, because it's the offering of music that's important. When making tormas, okay, the Tibetans make the tormas usually out of sampa. We don't have sampa here. Yeah, they use butter. You know, it doesn't work so well here. So we usually get a can of something, wrap it pretty, put some decorations on it, and that serves as the torma. It's a certain kind of offering that you make. So a lot of those external things are what can be changed. You know, the robes change. You can see from one Buddhist tradition to another, the robes change, how you bow change, how you set up the altar changes, the language you chant in changes, but many of the chants themselves are the same. Okay, not all of them, but many of them are the same. Yeah, the prayer we do at the very beginning, you know, to the endowed and the destroyer. That one is in the Pali tradition too. Okay, so there's certain things, if you find them across tradition, you know, it's one thing. But then other things, I mean, it's really cultural. I mean, the whole gender thing, in my eyes, is purely cultural. Because you think of, you know, ancient India at the time of the Buddha, yeah, women were first under the control of their father, then of their husband, then of their son. Yeah, is that the way it is here? Forget it. You know? Yeah, once you're a teenage girl, you don't listen to your mom and dad so much. You know, sometimes you try. But you know, women are not regarded as property in this society. They were in ancient India. Okay? So there's all sorts of things like that you have to look at the society in which certain ideas or rituals arose, and then see what's really the purpose of that and how can we make that in our society. And so with a lot of the Vinaya precepts, yeah, you know, we try and look at what the real purpose of the precept is and adapt that, even though maybe we can't keep the precept letter perfect because the conditions around us don't support that. Okay? Yeah, but it's very, very important to be careful in discerning what's the Dharma and what's Buddhism, because then you might wind up throwing the Buddha out with the bathwater, which you don't want to do. And sometimes when I look around to other Buddhist groups and the kind of adaptations they're making, I have some real questions. Yeah, about if people who are doing this really understand. Because we also, as Westerners, have a cultural arrogance. Yeah. We have a cultural arrogance. We also, there's still a remnant of a colonialist attitude. There's still the thing of, we are more advanced, we can modernize this. Yeah. And it's a kind of arrogance that we have to be very careful of, because unless we understand things deeply, we could make some big boo-boos. Okay? So I think it's good to discuss these kinds of things as they come up. Yeah? Okay, we did, yeah?
So also in regard to the identities that we're talking about and a common worldly issue, if the Buddhists have no gender, if our minds have no gender, and if we're not our bodies and there's no permanent person, and so on, what does it mean to be transgender? Meaning what does it mean when somebody says, I have the mind of a man per se, and I was born in the wrong body, I am transgender. How does that work? Who is transgender, or what is transgender?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's the same question as who is male and who is female. Yeah? And you can see if we talk about masculinity, we talk about femininity, all of this, it has to do with conceptions, and it's going to be different in each society. Yeah? What is considered masculine, feminine, or trans is different in each culture. You think?
And could it just be that maybe you've had multiple lives as a female, let's say, and you really identified with those qualities, and by the luck of the draw, you came in and you had a male body. So, you're just kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it's a karmic thing.
Right.
It's a karmic thing. Yeah, that's all I can really say. Yeah. Why we're born in the body we're born into has to do with our karma.
So, if you're born as, if you identify as transgender, is that an attachment to an identity, or is that like a medical condition? How does that? I'm sorry. I just don't understand this.
Let me refer to the sutras. I wonder if they have that in some sutra or another. I have no idea. Okay? What I can say is anytime we hold anything very tightly, there's grasping. What made that thought or that identity happen, I have no idea. But I can say whatever we hold tightly is going to be a cause of suffering. Okay? Like you live on North Elliott Street. If you hold, I am a resident of North Elliott Street. I don't live on South Elliott Street. I live on North Elliott. That's going to cause suffering. Okay? Why you live on North Elliott Street? There's some kind of karma. Ask the Buddha that one. Okay? I have no idea. Yeah? But, no, I don't understand. Okay? Yeah. Yeah.
So this, when we're meditating and something comes up in your mind that is kind of a deeper reflection or an insight, is it good to kind of dig into that a little bit more, or kind of go back to the visualization and the mantra, not slipping into a story or like distraction mind, but kind of something that you can kind of tell is a more potent insight that should be investigated?
Okay, so something you're maybe something, pieces are falling together about the puzzle, and you're getting some clarity maybe about your past conditioning or why you think the way you do or whatever. They always say virtuous things can be distractions too, but when that kind of thing happens, I always investigate it. Yeah, because I know that if I don't think about it, then it'll fade and I'll lose it. And it's something important that I need to look at. Yeah, so I look then.
I have two questions, but I think the first one's pretty easy. I just want some clarification about when we're doing the visualization and thinking about, like, for example, the lotus. I don't normally, but during today's session, I actually started thinking about renunciation. And it became so much more interesting and compelling to do the visualization. So I guess at what point, I mean, can we pause for like a minute, 5 minutes?
Sure.
And build it very slowly and kind of go through the path while we build the visualization.
Right. You can do the sadhana at whatever speed you like. You can zip through it. You can stop and meditate for 10 minutes or an hour, wherever you want to. Yeah?
Yeah, because I got the thought like, well, the lotus isn't interesting, but thinking about renunciation, is much more engaging.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then the other question is going back to this thing about purifying before we do an action. So I've had the experience where I make a determination for a particular amount of time, but I notice that I have a really strong affliction, and I kind of see myself going towards that action. But I remember I made the determination and give it back. Is that...
You give the determination back?
Yes. Okay, well... what would you advise?
I just express them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what do you want me to say? Yeah, you made a determination, then you're halfway through keeping it, and then you really want to do what you said you wouldn't do, and you still have 3 days more to go before you can do it. So you grit your teeth for 3 days, and 1 second after that third day, you're doing it. Okay? Or you still have those 3 days to go, and you just say, well, forget it. If you really feel that the affliction is so strong that you absolutely, positively cannot refrain, then you apologize to the Buddha, whatever, and you purify afterwards. Yeah, but it's better not to make a habit of that.
So it's more about apologizing rather than like giving it back. Or just don't make that happen.
That's it. You got it. Don't let that happen. Okay. Yeah. Tracy?
This is a question about purification too. I think I understand rejoicing for when I get a boil and things like that, and realize that it's karma ripening. But then I have times where I'm really disappointed by not getting something virtuous that I want to do, and I have troubles.
What do you mean?
Let's say go on retreat.
Oh. And you can't go on retreat.
Get a Dharma book, or other go to a teaching, and then to turn around and rejoice seems confusing
Yeah.
and difficult.
I mean, what you want to say is that's a result of my own negative karma, and my own negative karma is creating that obstacle, you know. And so I really want to do some purification to free myself from that kind of, the weight of that karma, so that I can go to the teaching or do whatever virtuous action it is at a later time. Yeah. But don't throw up your hands and say, "Oh, it's so useless. I won't even try going again." Don't do that. Okay. Okay. So we had a nice Q&A session with no meditation. It's time to dedicate and go back into silence.